this video, we're talking about how to factor trinomials, but we're going to have to take out the greatest common factor before we can go ahead and factor the trinomial completely. So in this first example, we have 4bx cubed minus 4bx squared minus 80bx, and we want to factor this trinomial. But before we factor a trinomial, we always need to look for the greatest common factor, and in this case, we have one. So the first thing we notice is that if we look at just these whole number coefficients on each term, we have 4, 4, and 80, so we can definitely take out a 4. So taking out a 4 here, and then if we start looking at the variables, we notice that we have b, b, and b. So because this factor is common to all three terms, we can definitely take out a b. And then looking at the x's, we have x cubed, we have x squared, and we have x. So we can take out 1x. 1x is common to all three of these terms. So that's going to be our greatest common factor. And when we take 4bx out of 4bx cubed, we took out the 4 and we took out the b, and we took out one factor of x. So that leaves us with just two factors of x to get back to x cubed, because x times x squared gets us back to x cubed. So that'll be x squared. And then for this term, we'll keep our minus sign first of all. So our minus sign, we took out the 4, we took out the b, and we took out one factor of x, which just leaves us with one more factor of x, because x times x gets us back to x squared. Then we'll keep our minus sign. And then when we divide 80 by 40, we get 20. So we have to multiply 20 by 4 to get back to 80. We took out the b and we took out the x. So negative 20 times 4bx is going to give us negative 80bx. So we're done there. This is going to be our greatest common factor, 4bx. But now we just need to see if we can factor this remaining trinomial, x squared minus x minus 20. And in fact, we can. We'll get 4bx times, when we look at the factors of 20, we're going to see that we're going to use the factors 5 and 4, because if we take a negative 5 and a positive 4, we'll get negative 1, which is the coefficient on this first degree x term here. So we're going to get x minus 5 and x plus 4. And if we want to double check ourselves, we can always multiply these two factors back out. We'd get x times x, which would give us x squared. We'd get plus 4x minus 5x, which would give us minus 1x, or just minus x like we have here in the middle. And then a negative 5 times a positive 4 gives us a negative 20. So we do in fact get back to this trinomial that we started with. So fully factored, this trinomial is 4bx times the quantity x minus 5 times the quantity x plus 4. If we look at a second example here, we have negative 3x cubed minus 6x squared plus 72x. This is a trinomial because we have three terms. We want to factor the trinomial, but before we do so, we have to see if we have a common factor among all three terms that we can pull out in order to reduce the trinomial. So looking at the whole number coefficients on each of our x variables here, we have 3, we have 6, and we have 72. We can definitely pull a 3 out in front. We also have here x cubed, x squared, and x, so we can pull out one factor of x. We'll do that. And then the other thing we need to notice is that we have a negative sign here in front of our 3x cubed. And whenever we have a negative sign at the front of our trinomial, we like to go ahead and take that negative sign out as part of our greatest common factor, because we want the trinomial to start with a positive term. So if we take out negative 3x squared, in our first term here, we took out the negative, we took out the 3, and we took out one factor of x, so that's going to leave us with two factors of x, or just x squared. Then we would have a minus sign here, but because we took out the negative, that's going to change all the signs, so that's going to change this to a positive. Taking 3 out of 6, 3 goes into 6 two times, so we're left with 2. And we took out one factor of x when we had two of them, so we just have one of them left. X times x gets us back to x squared. And then here we're taking out a negative, so we need to change this sign to a negative. 3 into 72 goes in 24 times. 3 times 24 gets us back to 72. And we took out the factor of x, so that's going to disappear there from our remaining trinomial. So now, can we factor x squared plus 2x minus 24? And in fact, we can. We need to look for factors of 24 that are 2 apart from one another, since this middle term here is 2. And those would be the factors 6 and 4. So what we'll end up with then is negative 3x times, because this is positive, our larger factor is going to need to be positive, so we'll get a positive 6 and a negative 4. So we'll get x plus 6 and x minus 4. And if we want to just double check ourselves, we can say x times x gets us back to x squared. X times negative 4 is a negative 4x plus 6x, that's going to give us a positive 2x, and then a positive 6 times a negative 4 does in fact give us a negative 24. So we can see that we do get back to our original trinomial, which means that we factored here correctly.